In the last video, we mentioned 10 names that deserve more recognition, but it wasn't enough because I still had so many names in my mind that I said, this should have been. Today, I'm making the continuation of this video. When you hear these names, I'm sure you will remember them too. Let's get started. Gary Moore was born in Belfast, Ireland. He was just a child when he picked up the guitar, but his talent was so great that he was already a giant on stage at a young age. When you think of Gary Moore, you usually think of the blues, right? But he was actually a musical chameleon. In the 70s, he rocked out with hard rock. In the 80s, he winked at heavy metal. In the 90s, he went back to the blues and even did jazz fusion projects. That's why it's impossible to put him in a single mold. For those who remember, Gary Moore once played in a jazz fusion band called Coliseum 2. During this period, he played complex solos on his guitar that challenged John McLaughlin and created melodies that were very different from the blues tones we are used to. In his music, you can find both the melancholic melodies of Ireland and the hard and energetic structure of hard rock. Starting his career with Skid Row, from his early work in Thin Lizzy to his solo career, he never lost his passion for the blues. In fact, he gave the blues a completely different dimension by filtering it through his own filter. But for me, the real explosion of Gary Moore, the real "this is it" moments, was that incredible period of hard rock and heavy metal in his solo career. His albums throughout the 80s were remarkable. Corridors of Power, 1982, After the G-Force Project, Victims of the Future, 1983. You know how there are some guitarists you can recognize by the note? Gary Moore was exactly like that. Maybe it was too quiet, maybe he wasn't flamboyant, but music was not an ego for him, it was a form of expression. His sudden death in 2011 was a great loss to the music world. Michael Schenker was only 11 years old when he picked up the guitar. Some people only know him from UFO or Scorpions, but Michael Schenker is truly one of the philosophers of the guitar. For me, Schenker's difference starts here. His solos are not just technical, they are like a melodic story. It's like every note tells what he's feeling, especially when you look at the UFO era in the 70s. His solos in songs like Doctor Doctor or Rock Bottom are still like lessons. I have to say this, I think Michael Schenker has never gotten the recognition he deserves. Maybe because he didn't like the spotlight too much. Maybe because he was overshadowed by his brother Rudolf Schenker. But I think he deserves much more. Those fresh and raw solos on Scorpion's first album, then the creativity that peaked in UFO, then the Michael Schenker group, MSG, he founded himself. In other words, the man has always made his own path. Without bending and twisting, he played what he wanted, not what was fashionable. Even the way Michael Schenker picked up that classic flying Vi guitar was different. Very natural, very sincere. Whenever he took a solo, it was as if the guitar was an extension of him. He could make you cry, and he could make you rage. I still get goosebumps when I listen to Into the Arena in particular. In conclusion, Michael Schenker is not just a guitarist who plays fast. He represents a tone, emotion, and vision with character. Warren DeMartini. For me, he is one of the most elegant guitar characters of the 80s hard rock and glam metal scene. The first thing that comes to most people's minds when they think of Rat is probably Round and Round. But if you ask me, Warren was the real heart of that band. When he picked up that guitar, he wasn't just hitting notes. He had style coming out of his fingertips. Warren DeMartini's tone. I recognize it instantly whenever I hear it. It's not too fancy, it's not a dry technical show. I think it's just the right dose of refined aesthetics. His solos on songs like Lay It Down, You're in Love, Way Cool Jr. are still in my ears. He has such a sense of melody that some notes seem to dance. Even when he plays fast, it flows without scratching the ear. Warren DeMartini is one of those rare guys who made the guitar fashionable in the 80s, but didn't lose its soul. He may have had a lot of hairspray, but he had real blues running through his fingers. He may have been influenced by Eddie Van Halen, but he didn't try to copy him. He made his own way. Steve Stevens was born in New York in 1959, and I think that explains a lot. The chaos, the energy, the cultural diversity of that city, I feel like it's all reflected in his guitar somehow. Because he doesn't just play, his guitar speaks like a city. When he picks up that guitar, he can make you feel who he is even before he goes on stage. It's very clear in his work with Billy Idol. Rebel Yell, for example, that riff, it's both harsh and melodic, both rebellious and emotional. Stevens' guitar tone is like a character there. I think the guitar is as much the lead in that song as Billy Idol is, but it would be unfair to limit him only to Idol. Top Gun Anthem is still one of the most iconic instrumental tracks for me. When I first heard the Flamenco A Go-Go album, I thought, is this really Steve Stevens? But then I realized that album is another part of his soul. So the man continued to discover not only music but also himself. He didn't stick to cliches. He didn't chase after trends. For me, Steve Stevens' biggest characteristic is that whenever he plays the guitar, he captures the emotion of the moment. There is technique, there is speed, there is style, but the main thing is character. Stevens' guitar tone is like talking to you. Sometimes it provokes, sometimes it envelops you. The guitar is almost like an extension of him. Vivian Campbell, like Gary Moore, was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland in 1962. Vivian's solos are always a struggle, always an inner explosion, not with soft melodies but with riffs that are on fire. For me, where Vivian Campbell shines like a star is of course her work with Dio. Holy Diver, The Last in Line, Sacred Heart. These 3 albums are officially written in the history of heavy metal. Vivian's style has always been clear and clean to me. Not overdone, but definitely effective. Technique is there, speed is there, but he never just shows off. Every note is in its place. I think this is his greatest virtue, to play with power without losing emotion, and not every guitarist can do that. Then he had a short period with Whitesnake, and then he joined Def Leppard. Even though some fans say he doesn't play like Dio anymore, I felt Vivian's musical maturity more during that period, because he doesn't just play guitar, he serves the song. He's ego-free. He's only in it for the music. That's why he brought a great balance to Def Leppard. But the most heartbreaking part is that Vivian battled cancer for years. Despite this, she never left the stage, never put down the guitar. It is possible to see that warriorism, that passion both in his life and in his music. And this makes her music even more meaningful. Ritchie Kotzen was born in Pennsylvania in 1970. Coming from a quiet provincial place, this guy's music, in my opinion, is deep, bold, and extremely colorful. The first time I listened to him, I thought, what category does this guy fit into? But then I realized that Kotzen doesn't fit into any category. He joined the shred crew at a young age, and with Shrapnel Records he became known as the kid whose fingertips caught fire. But here's the interesting thing. Ritchie didn't just remain a fast guitarist, he absorbed soul, blues, and even a bit of jazz into his guitar over time. When I listen to a Kotzen solo today, sometimes I feel like B.B. King, sometimes I feel like he's giving a nod to Stevie Ray Vaughan. I think that short but eventful period with Poison didn't suit him. But after Mr. Big, he found his own music, especially his solo albums, Change, Go Faster, Salting Earth, showed how complete a musician he is, not only in terms of guitar but also vocals and songwriting. His voice is as warm and powerful as his guitar. It's rare to find someone who can strike such a dual balance. With the Winery Dogs project, he gained a completely different identity. He is the singer, the guitarist, and the soul giver of the trio. Tracks like Damaged, Regret are still on my list, especially that solo towards the end of Regret. Time seems to stand still there. He is on the radar of everyone who knows the guitar and feels the sound. Because he's not a showman who poses and goes on stage, he's a soul trying to express himself. When I think of Marty Friedman, I think not only of technique, but also of cultural fusion. Because this guy didn't just play the guitar fast, he brought sounds from other worlds. Born in 1962, out of Washington, D.C., but at some point he changed his course from America to Japan. And if you ask me, that's when the real Marty Friedman emerged. The Megadeth era is of course unforgettable. His solo in Rust in Peace, Tornado of Souls was admirable, and the period when he and Dave Mustaine had chemistry brought Megadeth to another level, both technique and emotion. And there are very few guitarists who blend the two so well. But for me, Friedman is not only remembered for Megadeth. He is a character who takes music beyond borders. His interest in Japanese music, moving there and appearing on TV shows, combining melodies from J-pop with metal. These things take courage. Scenes, true obsessions, music for speeding. For me, these albums are not only a lesson in guitar playing, but also in composition. He can tell a story with a single note. As a result, when you listen to him, you feel not only rock or metal, but also Japanese folk music and classical harmonies. And that makes him a timeless artist. Ohio-born Paul Gilbert was not only a guitar virtuoso, but also a representative of an imagination that pushed boundaries with his music. When he exploded with Racer X, he was already pushing technical boundaries at a young age. Tracks like Technical Difficulties from that period still show up in guitar lessons. But Paul is not just a guitarist who shreds. He is, first and foremost, a man who makes music for fun. You can tell by the look on his face when he plays guitar. He still loves music like a kid. When he moved to Mr. Big, he went a bit more mainstream. But even that couldn't overpower Gilbert's character. Green-tinted 60s mind, addicted to that rush. These songs still have Paul's playful yet masterful touch in them. He always manages to connect with the listener. As for his solo career, that's where Gilbert really shines. Fuzz Universe, Burning Organ, Get Out of My Yard. These albums are not only examples of virtuosity, but also musical intelligence. Sometimes he plays blues, sometimes he plays classical music, sometimes he plays something like a spaghetti western. but every time you're like, that's definitely Paul Gilbert. Paul is not only a guitarist, he's also an incredible teacher. When you watch his lesson videos, you learn, you laugh, and you feel his child spirit. For him, playing guitar is not a technique, it's like a game. Maybe that's why he's been so prolific for so long. Born in 1957, Chris Poland is a musician from Ohio. When I first heard him, I thought I was dealing with a classic thrash metal guitarist, but in time, I realized that he was something else. Although he was in the early days of Megadeth, Chris Poland's mind was always beyond metal, and maybe that's why he left such a special and distinctive mark. He played on Megadeth's Killing Is My Business and Peace Sells, but who's buying? And let's face it, if we still remember those albums today, it's not only because of Dave Mustaine, but also because of Chris Poland's unique tone. Because in that period, Poland started to make the guitar speak in completely different ways. His turn towards jazz fusion and the work he did with OHM Project revealed his true identity. After a huge band like Megadeth, maybe most people would have wanted to stay there, but he listened to his inner voice. He went after his own guitar, not the crowd's, and I think that made him more valuable. Born in Toronto, Canada, Alex Lifson has already earned his place as one of progressive rock's most original and unassuming guitar heroes. With Rush, this man built a musical structure that still stands and still inspires awe. When it comes to Rush, most people are mesmerized by Geddy Lee's vocals, or Neil Peart's poetic drums, but if you ask me, the quietest but deepest corner of that triangle has always been Alex. Limelight, The Spirit of Radio, La Via Strangiato. When you listen to these tracks and pay attention to Lifeson's chord choices, tone, and dynamism, you immediately realize that he is no ordinary guitarist. Moreover, Lifson creates not only technique, but also atmosphere. Especially the way he uses effects such as delay and chorus contributes greatly to Rush's alien-like atmosphere. Playing with the same band for more than 40 years and still being proud of serving music. This is a value that has almost disappeared in today's music world. He throws his solo as needed. He gives the feeling of the piece what it needs. In the end, you can't put Alex Lifson in the virtuosity race because his race was different. He competed with the music itself. He tried to create more meaningful, deeper, more lasting sounds. And I think he succeeded very well. Here are 10 more guitarists who, in my opinion, deserve more appreciation. Some of them are remembered not for their voice, but for their tone and posture. Some rocked the stage but never made it to the top of the charts. But one thing is true. They all added soul to rock music with every note they played. So, who do you think should have been on this list? Let us know in the comments and maybe we can open the door to the next video together. See you in the next video. Goodbye, Rock Again, family.